Maplewood Street was a quiet, ordinary neighborhood. The houses were painted in soft colors, lawns were trimmed neatly, and children played safely on the sidewalks. Everyone knew each other, except for the old man who showed up one cloudy afternoon. Crow rode in on a rusty bicycle that squeaked with every turn of its wheels. His clothes were faded, patched at the elbows, and his hat looked like it had survived 100 storms. He moved slowly, as if carrying invisible weights on his shoulders. The neighbors noticed him immediately. Curtains twitched. Mrs. Thompson, who lived in the house with the bright red door, squinted through her window. "Who's that?" she muttered to herself. The man parked his bike near the abandoned lot at the end of the street. The lot was overgrown with weeds, and the old shops there had been boarded up for years. Kids dared each other to go near it at night, claiming it was haunted. But the old man didn't seem afraid. He sat down on a broken bench, pulled out a crumpled paper bag, and began feeding the stray cats that lurked nearby. A group of teenagers passing by laughed. "Look at the hobo," one whispered loudly. The man didn't react. He just kept tearing pieces of bread and tossing them to the cats. His hands were rough, but his movements were gentle. Mrs. Thompson called her friend, Mrs. Lopez, who lived 2 houses down. "There's a stranger at the lot," she said, her voice sharp with worry. "He could be dangerous." Mrs. Lopez peered outside. "He's just feeding cats, Martha. Leave him be." But Mrs. Thompson wasn't convinced. She kept watch all afternoon, jotting notes in her neighborhood safety notebook. The next morning, the man returned. This time, he carried a small toolbox. He walked around the lot, poking at the broken fence and scribbling in a notebook. Timmy, a 12-year-old with messy hair and a love for adventure, rode his scooter past the lot and stopped to stare. The man glanced up and Timmy quickly looked away. But when he peeked again, the man was smiling faintly, as if sharing a secret with the wind. "Mom, that old guy's been at the lot again," Timmy said at dinner. "He's weird." His mother shrugged. "Maybe he's just lonely, Tim. Don't bother him." But Timmy's curiosity grew. Later, he sneaked out and hid behind a tree to watch. The man was still there, sitting under a flickering street lamp, writing in his notebook. Timmy squinted. Were those numbers on the page? Rumors spread. Some said the man was a thief casing the neighborhood. Others thought he was a homeless veteran. The teenagers nicknamed him Rusty because of his bike. One evening, they tossed empty soda cans into the lot, laughing when the man flinched at the noise. But he didn't yell or chase them. He just sighed and started cleaning up the mess. Mrs. Thompson decided to take action. She marched to the lot, her heels clicking loudly. "Excuse me," she said, crossing her arms. "This is private property. You can't stay here." The man looked up, his eyes calm but tired. "I'm not causing trouble," he said softly. His voice was rough, like gravel, but polite. "That's not the point," Mrs. Thompson snapped. "You're scaring people. Leave." For a moment, the man held her gaze. Then he nodded, packed his things, and pedaled away. Mrs. Thompson smirked, certain she'd won. But the next morning he was back. This time he brought paint. The teenagers had spray-painted "Go Home" on the lot's fence the night before. The man dipped a brush into a can of white paint and quietly covered the words. Then, with a smaller brush, he painted a bright yellow sunflower over the spot. It was clumsy, but cheerful. Timmy watched from his bedroom window. Why's he doing that, he wondered. The man didn't look angry or sad, just focused, like this was a job he'd done many times before. That night, Mrs. Thompson called the police. "There's a trespasser," she said firmly. But when the officers arrived, the lot was empty. All they found were cat paw prints and a half-finished painting of a sunflower. The man became a ghostly routine. Dawn to dusk, he'd appear, work on the lot, feed the cats, and vanish. The neighbors argued. Mrs. Lopez brought him a thermos of coffee one chilly morning. "Here," she said gently. "You look like you need it." The man accepted it with a grateful nod but didn't speak. Why won't he just talk? "Timmy?" asked his friends. They shrugged. "Maybe he's a robot," one joked. But Timmy noticed something the others didn't. The man's eyes. They were sharp, alert, and always watching, like he knew things no one else did. One afternoon, a storm rolled in. Rain poured as the man struggled to fix a tarp over the lot's crumbling shed. Timmy's mother, seeing him from her kitchen window, grabbed an umbrella and ran out. "Come inside," she urged. "You'll catch a cold." The man hesitated, then shook his head. "Thank you," he said. "But I'm fine." As Timmy's mother walked back, she noticed something odd. The man's toolbox was expensive, sturdy, polished, nothing like his clothes. Who was he? The mystery deepened, and Maplewood Street buzzed with whispers, unaware their quiet judgment was about to unravel into the shock of a lifetime. The old man's routine became Maplewood Street's strange new normal. Every morning, like clockwork, Elias arrived on his squeaky bike. His faded hat hid most of his face, but his hands stayed busy, sweeping debris from the lot, patching cracks in the old shed, or sketching in his notebook. The stray cats followed him like loyal shadows, weaving between his legs as he worked. Timmy couldn't stay away. During summer break, he'd pedal his scooter to the lot, pretending to spy on Elias from behind a tree. One afternoon, he got brave. "Why do you come here?" he blurted out. Elias paused, then pointed at a scrawny tabby cat. "Someone's got to care for them," he said. His voice was quiet but firm. Timmy shuffled closer. "Are you hiding here?" Elias chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "Hiding's for folks who've done wrong. I'm just waiting." Before Timmy could ask what he was waiting for, Elias handed him a bag of cat food. "Make yourself useful," he said, nodding at the cats. Timmy grinned, scattering kibble like he'd been given a secret mission. Meanwhile, Mrs. Thompson's suspicions boiled over. She'd seen Timmy talking to the man and marched straight to his mother's house. "That vagrant's brainwashing your boy," she declared. Timmy's mom, Sarah, sighed. "Timmy says he's harmless. Maybe we should give him a chance?" Mrs. Thompson huffed. "Mark my words, he's up to no good." The next day, Elias did something unexpected. He dragged an old, water-damaged sign from the shed and propped it against the fence. With careful strokes, he repainted the letters until it read, "Future home of." The rest was blank. Kids gathered, guessing what it meant. A haunted house. A skate park. Elias ignored them, humming as he painted. That night, Mrs. Thompson called the city council. "There's illegal activity at the lot," she claimed. When an inspector arrived, Elias calmly handed him a folder of papers. The inspector flipped through them, nodded, and left without a word. Mrs. Thompson gaped. "What did you show him?" she demanded. Elias tucked the folder away. "Proof," he said simply. Timmy's curiosity exploded. He started showing up daily, bringing Elias sandwiches from home. "My mom made extra," he'd say, though Sarah had no idea. Elias accepted them with a grateful nod. One afternoon, Timmy found a blueprint sticking out of Elias's toolbox. "What's this?" he asked, unrolling it. The paper showed a colorful layout of gardens, shops, and a playground. Elias snatched it back. "Not yet," he muttered. Timmy's eyes widened. "Is this for here?" Elias didn't answer, but his silence said enough. The teenagers, bored and itching for drama, decided to prank Elias again. They sneaked into the lot at midnight, planning to toilet paper the shed. But as they crept closer, a bright flashlight blinded them. Elias stood in the doorway, holding a phone. "The cops are on their way," he said flatly. The teens froze. They'd never heard him speak so sharply. "We were just," one stammered. "Leaving," Elias finished. They scrambled away, their laughter shaky with fear. The next morning, the lot felt different. A stack of fresh lumber appeared, along with bags of soil and paint cans. Neighbors whispered as delivery trucks came and went. Mr. Carter, the retired lawyer, studied the activity from his porch. "Those permits," he showed the inspector, "they're legit," he told Mrs. Lopez. Whatever he's building, it's legal. Mrs. Thompson refused to believe it. She cornered Elias as he unloaded gardening tools. "Who's funding this?" she demanded. Elias wiped sweat from his brow. "I am." She snorted. "With what? Begging money?" For the first time, Elias's calm cracked. His eyes narrowed, and his voice dropped. "You'd be surprised what this beggar owns." Timmy, eavesdropping from behind a tree, held his breath. Owns? Days later, a storm knocked down part of the fence. Elias worked through the rain, hammering it back up. Sarah ran out with an umbrella. "Let me help," she said, holding it over him. Elias hesitated, then handed her a nail. Together, they fixed the fence in silence. As Sarah left, she noticed something. Elias's raincoat, though muddy, was high quality, the kind her ex-husband could never afford. Rumors split the street. Some families brought Elias lemonade or tools, curious about his project. Others, led by Mrs. Thompson, muttered about property values and strangers. One evening, Timmy found Elias staring at the blank part of the sign. "What's it gonna say?" he asked. Elias handed him a paintbrush. "You pick." Timmy's heart raced. He dipped the brush in red paint and carefully added, "Something awesome." Elias burst out laughing, a warm, rich sound that startled the cats. "Perfect," he said. But the peace didn't last. The next morning, someone had vandalized the sign again, spraying liar over Timmy's words. Elias stared at it, shoulders slumping. Timmy kicked a rock, furious. "Why don't you tell them who you are?" Elias turned, his face unreadable. "Would they believe me?" Before Timmy could answer, a black car pulled up. A well-dressed woman stepped out, shaking Elias's hand. "Mr. Green," she said loudly, "the council approved your final proposal." Timmy's jaw dropped. "Mr. Green?" Mrs. Thompson, lurking nearby, dropped her coffee cup. It shattered on the sidewalk, but no one heard. The block was too busy watching their homeless squatter sign a document with the confidence of a CEO, and realizing they'd misjudged him all along. The street erupted in whispers. Mrs. Thompson's face turned red as the well-dressed woman handed Elias a folder stamped with the city's seal. "The project starts Monday, Mr. Green," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Neighbors crept out of their homes, drawn by the commotion. Timmy stood frozen, his paintbrush still dripping red onto the liar graffiti. Elias glanced at the crowd, his expression calm but weary. "This lot," he said, tapping the sign Timmy had painted, "will be Maplewood Commons, a community garden, cafe, and space for everyone." Mrs. Lopez clapped, but most stared in stunned silence. Mrs. Thompson finally found her voice. You lied to us." "No," Elias said quietly. "You never asked." Timmy's mom, Sarah, stepped forward. "Why keep it a secret?" Elias removed his hat, revealing a face etched with patience. "I wanted to see if this street still had heart. Communities aren't built by money. They're built by people." The teenagers who'd vandalized the lot shuffled awkwardly. One muttered, "We didn't know." Elias nodded at them. "Now you do. Help fix it." Mrs. Thompson stormed off, but curiosity gnawed at the block. By evening, a crowd gathered at the lot. Elias unrolled blueprints showing lush gardens, a playground, and a cozy cafe with stray cat coffee painted on the window. "The strays stay," he said firmly, scratching a purring tabby behind the ears. Timmy raised his hand. "Can we name the cafe after this cat?" The group laughed, tension easing. Mrs. Lopez brought tamales. "For the team," she announced. Even the teenagers returned, avoiding eye contact but hauling tools. But Mrs. Thompson refused to join. From her window, she watched the lot buzz with activity. Sarah spotted her and knocked on her door. "We need your organizing skills, Martha," she said gently. Mrs. Thompson scoffed. "I'm not falling for his act." The next day, rain poured. Construction halted as workers covered supplies. Elias, drenched, struggled to secure a tarp over a stack of wood. Across the street, Mrs. Thompson gripped her curtains, conflicted. With a groan, She grabbed an umbrella and marched out. "You'll ruin the lumber," she snapped, holding the umbrella over him. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Here to chase me off again?" "I'm here to help," she muttered, her cheeks pink. Together they anchored the tarp. Neighbors watched, in disbelief. Progress sped up. Families painted murals on the shed walls, sunflowers, cats, Maplewood's skyline. Timmy convinced Elias to add a secret tunnel for the cats. "For espionage," he whispered. Elias chuckled. "Deal." But one morning disaster struck. Overnight, vandals had smashed planter boxes and spray-painted "fake" on the cafe walls. The block gathered, furious. "Who'd do this?" Sarah fumed. Elias knelt, picking up shattered wood. "Fear makes people reckless," he said quietly. Mrs. Thompson surprised everyone. "I'll handle this." She marched to the local school where the troublemaking teens hung out. Minutes later, she returned with 3 guilty-looking boys. "Apologize," she ordered, arms crossed. They mumbled sorries, avoiding Elias's gaze. "Now fix what you broke," Elias said. The teens worked silently, their earlier defiance replaced by shame. Timmy handed them brushes. "The mural needs more green," he said casually. Slowly, the boys joined in. That weekend, the block hosted a bake sale to replace the damaged supplies. Mrs. Thompson baked 3 pies. "For the cafe," she said, avoiding Elias's smile. By sundown, they'd raised enough for new plants and paint. As the garden bloomed, something shifted. Neighbors who'd never spoken before traded stories over shovels. The teenagers taught Timmy skateboard tricks during breaks. Even the stray cats seemed prouder, strutting through the half-built cafe like tiny supervisors. One evening, Elias found Timmy sketching a sign for Maplewood Commons' grand opening. "It needs fireworks," Timmy said. Elias nodded. "And a cat wearing a hat." Laughing, they didn't notice Mrs. Thompson approach. She cleared her throat. "I owe you an apology," she said stiffly. Elias waved her off. "You were protecting your home, that's a good thing." Mrs. Thompson hesitated, then handed him a key. "For the cafe. It's my late husband's. Figured it should go to someone who'll use it well." Elias accepted it solemnly. "Thank you, Martha." On the eve of the opening, the street gathered under twinkling lights Elias had strung up. The cafe's sign glowed. Stray cat coffee, with a painted cat winking. Mrs. Lopez played guitar as kids danced. Even the reformed teens served lemonade, boasting about their art skills. Elias stood back watching. Timmy tugged his sleeve. "You're staying, right?" "Wouldn't miss it," Elias said. Then, softer, "Communities need old wizards, don't they?" Timmy grinned. "And spies." As laughter filled the lot, Maplewood Street realized the real treasure wasn't the shiny new cafe or garden. It was the man in the faded hat who'd shown them how to belong to each other. The grand opening of Maplewood Commons was just days away. Strings of lights hung between trees and the cafe's windows gleamed. But as the neighborhood buzzed with excitement, dark clouds rolled in. Timmy frowned at the sky. "What if it rains?" he asked Elias. The old man shrugged. "Rain's good luck. Makes things grow." The next morning the storm hit hard. Wind rattled the cafe's new sign, and rain flooded the garden paths. Elias arrived early, his hat dripping, to find Mrs. Thompson already there, sandbagging the shed door. "The soil's washing away," she shouted over the noise. Together they dragged tarps over the flower beds, their earlier tension forgotten, in the chaos. By afternoon, the block rallied. Teens hauled buckets to bail water. Parents built makeshift drains with bricks. Timmy and his friends rescued stray cats, carrying them into the cafe's storage room. "This is not good luck," Timmy yelled, clutching a soaked kitten. Elias just winked. "Wait and see." But the storm wasn't the only problem. The next day, Mr. Carter noticed a "for sale" sign nailed to the Commons fence. "Who put this here?" he growled. The sign claimed the lot was being sold to a big developer. A lie. Panic spread. Had Elias changed his mind? Mrs. Thompson stormed to Elias's tiny apartment above the cafe, a fact the block had just discovered. "Explain this," she demanded, waving the sign. Elias squinted at it. "Not my doing." His calm made her angrier. "Then who?" Timmy had a hunch. He snuck to the lot that night, hiding behind the new planter boxes. At midnight, a shadowy figure crept in, carrying another fake sign. Timmy's heart raced. It was Mr. Doyle, the grumpy owner of the failing gas station nearby. He'd been against the Commons from the start, fearing it would steal his customers. "Got you," Timmy yelled, flicking on his flashlight. Mr. Doyle froze, then snarled, "This lot's a joke, it'll ruin my business." Elias appeared silently behind him, holding a phone. "The police are on their way, Doyle. Let's talk." When the officers arrived, Elias surprised everyone. "No charges," he said, "but Doyle helps us rebuild." The man scowled but nodded, ashamed. The block buzzed with Timmy's bravery. "You're a hero," his friends cheered. Timmy blushed. Elias did the scary part. The storm passed, leaving the Commons muddy but alive. At a community meeting, Elias revealed his final plan, a weekly farmers market. "Local businesses can sell here too," he said, glancing at Doyle. The gas station owner grumbled. "I'll think about it." Mrs. Thompson stood. "I'll manage the market schedules." The room erupted in applause. She sat down, flustered but smiling. The night before the opening, Elias found Timmy hanging fairy lights. "You've earned this," he said, handing him a small box. Inside was a shiny key. "For the cafe. You're its first junior manager." Timmy's eyes widened. "Seriously?" Elias nodded. "Spies need headquarters." But joy turned to worry when Mrs. Lopez's prized sunflower mural was found vandalized again. This time, fraud was sprayed in black. The block gathered, exhausted and angry. "Who's doing this?" Sarah cried. Elias studied the graffiti, then sighed. "Me." Silence fell. Timmy dropped his key. "What?" Elias pointed to the bottom corner of the mural, a tiny hidden signature. "I painted this word years ago. It's my initials. Elias Franklin Green." He smiled sheepishly. The rain washed off the top layers, didn't realize it was still there. The crowd erupted in relieved laughter. Mrs. Lopez hugged him. "You old trickster." On opening day, the sun blazed. The Commons overflowed with neighbors, music, and the smell of fresh coffee. Kids raced through the garden, teens served pastries, and even Mr. Doyle sold homemade jerky at a booth. Elias stood aside, watching. Mrs. Thompson handed him a lemonade. "You're not escaping applause," she said, nudging him forward. The crowd cheered as Timmy shouted, "Speech." Elias's voice trembled. "This place wasn't built by me. It was built by you. You chose kindness over fear." He nodded. To Mrs. Thompson, Timmy, and even Doyle. "That's the real magic." As the party rolled on, Timmy spotted Elias slipping away. He followed him to the old bench where they'd first met. "Are you leaving?" Timmy asked, scared. Elias patted the seat beside him. "I've got one last secret." He pulled a deed from his coat. The Commons now belong to the neighborhood. "It's yours to protect. Think you're ready?" Timmy hugged him, the deed crumpling between them. "We'll need your help." Elias smiled. "Oh, I'm not going far. Someone's got to feed the cats." That night, as fireworks lit the sky, the block knew their story was just beginning. And the old man in the faded hat? He finally belonged. Maplewood Commons thrived. The cafe buzzed with customers, kids laughed in the garden, and the farmers' market became the neighborhood's pride. Timmy, now the cafe's junior manager, proudly wore a blue apron with a cat logo. But peace didn't last long. One morning, a sleek black car parked outside the Commons. A sharp-dressed man stepped out, eyeing the lot like a hawk. He marched to Mrs. Thompson, who was arranging tulips. "I represent Urban Edge developers," he said, handing her a business card. "We want to buy this land. Name your price, Mrs." Thompson's face hardened. "It's not for sale." The man smirked. "Everyone has a price. Talk to your neighbors." Rumors spread faster than wildfire. At the market, Mr. Doyle cornered Elias. "They're offering millions," he whispered. "We could split it." Elias sipped his coffee. "And lose our home?" "No," but doubt crept in. Some families struggled with bills. The commons needed repairs. At a tense meeting, voices clashed. "We could use the money," argued a young father. Mrs. Lopez slammed her fist. "This place is our heart." Timmy listened, scared. What if the block broke apart? He ran to Elias's apartment. "You gotta stop them." Elias sighed. "It's their choice now, but remind them what they'd lose." The next day, Timmy hatched a plan. He printed old photos of the lot, crumbling, gray, and lifeless, and pinned them around the commons. Underneath, he wrote, "Remember the before." Neighbors paused, tracing the images with their fingers. The developer returned, offering free vacations and fancy dinners to sway votes. Mrs. Thompson shut her door in his face, but others hesitated. Timmy's friend, Jake, confessed, "Dad says we could buy a bigger house." Elias stayed quiet, but his actions spoke. He repainted the "future home of something awesome" sign, faded by sun and rain. Mrs. Thompson found him one dawn, brushing fresh gold letters. "You're not fighting," she accused. "Fought enough wars," Elias said. "This one's yours." The vote arrived. Families gathered under the cafe's twinkling lights. The developer smirked, sure of victory. But as Mrs. Thompson called names, something shifted. Mr. Doyle stood first. I vote no." The room gasped. "This place gave me a second chance. Money can't buy that." One by one, hands rose. No, even Jake's dad sighed. "We'll manage. Let's keep our home." The developer stormed out. Cheers shook the commons. Timmy hugged Elias. "We did it." But Elias's smile faded. That night, coughing fits kept him awake. He hid it well, but Timmy noticed. "You okay?" Elias waved. Him off. Just a cold. Weeks passed. The commons faced new troubles. A leaky roof, wilted plants, and a food inspector's warning. Timmy scrambled to fix things, but stress weighed on the block. Mrs. Thompson snapped at volunteers. Even the cat seemed uneasy. One rainy afternoon, Timmy found Elias kneeling in the garden, trembling. "I'm fine," Elias insisted, but his face was pale. Timmy called Sarah. "Something's wrong." At the hospital, tests revealed the truth. Elias's cold was a serious heart condition. "He needs rest," the doctor said. "No more stress." The block reeled. "We took him for granted," Mrs. Lopez cried. Guilt hung heavy. That night, Mrs. Thompson rallied everyone. "We'll run the commons without bothering Elias. Understood?" They divided tasks. Teens managed the cafe. Mr. Doyle fixed the roof. Mrs. Lopez revived the garden. Timmy became Elias's spy, updating him with funny reports. "The cats miss your hat," he said, making Elias laugh. But Elias grew weaker. One evening, he asked Timmy to walk him to the lot. They sat on their old bench. "Promise me something," Elias whispered. "Keep the magic alive. Even when I'm gone." Timmy's eyes filled with tears. "Don't say that." Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. "Magic isn't people, Timmy. It's what they leave behind." The next morning, the commons woke to a surprise. Overnight, someone had planted a row of sunflowers along the fence, Elias's favorite. In the center stood a new sign, Elias's garden, always growing. Mrs. Thompson found Timmy watering the flowers. "Did you do this?" she asked softly. Timmy shook his head. "It wasn't me." They never found out who planted them. But as the sunflowers bloomed, the block knew. Elias's heart was everywhere. And as long as the commons lived, so did he. The sunflowers bloomed taller than anyone expected. their golden faces following the sun. But Elias wasn't there to see them. He passed quietly in his sleep, a half-finished cup of coffee, and a cat curled at his feet. The block mourned. Mrs. Thompson organized a memorial in the garden, her voice cracking as she read his favorite poem. Timmy hung Elias's faded hat on the cafe wall. "It's like he's still watching," he whispered. Days felt heavier without Elias's hum or his rusty bike's squeak. The cafe's laughter turned softer, and the garden's colors seemed duller. Then one morning, Mrs. Lopez found a sealed envelope in Elias's old toolbox. "For Maplewood," it read. Inside were blueprints for a rooftop greenhouse and a note, "Keep growing. E." The block rallied. "We'll build it," Timmy declared. But money was tight. The greenhouse needed glass panels, soil, and seeds. Mrs. Thompson suggested a fundraiser. "A talent show," Timmy blurted. Skeptical glances flew. "We're not performers," Mr. Doyle grumbled. "Elias believed in us," Timmy insisted. Reluctantly, they agreed. Rehearsals were chaos. Teens practiced skateboard tricks, Mrs. Lopez sang off-key Spanish ballads, and Timmy tried magic tricks, badly. "You're supposed to pull a rabbit from the hat, not your sneaker." Jake laughed. Even the cat seemed entertained, batting at fallen props. The night of the show, the commons overflowed. Neighbors, strangers, and even the grumpy food inspector came. Timmy, wearing Elias's hat, welcomed the crowd. "This is for our greenhouse and for him." Axe stumbled, but charmed. Mr. Doyle juggled oranges, dropping 3. Mrs. Thompson recited a poem, surprising everyone with her rhythm. The grand finale, Timmy's magic act. He waved Elias's old scarf over a pot. Abracadabra. A sunflower sprouted, thanks to Mrs. Lopez hiding under the table with a plant. The crowd roared. They raised enough for the greenhouse. But as construction began, a new problem arose, a drought. The garden wilted, and the city restricted water use. "The plants won't survive," Mrs. Lopez fretted. Timmy scoured Elias's notebooks and found sketches for a rainwater collection system. He knew the block built barrels under gutters, channeling every drop. Kids painted them with sunflowers and cats. When the first rain came, cheers echoed down Maplewood. "Elias's magic," Mrs. Thompson murmured, watching barrels fill. One afternoon, a stranger arrived, a young woman with a backpack and a shy smile. She lingered at Elias's memorial, tears in her eyes. Timmy approached. "Did you know him?" "He was my grandfather," she said softly. Her name was Lila, Elias's only family. She'd been traveling abroad and only just heard the news. The block gathered nervous. Would she claim the commons? But Lila hugged Mrs. Thompson. "He wrote to me about you all, said this was his greatest project." She pulled out a letter Elias had sent her. "If I'm gone, help them. They're family now." Lila moved into Elias's apartment. She had his calm hands planting herbs in the greenhouse. Timmy showed her the cats' names. Mrs. Thompson shared his favorite coffee blend. Slowly, Lila became part of the block's rhythm. Yet the cafe struggled. Fewer customers came and the roof leaked again. "Maybe we need something new," Lila suggested. Timmy groaned. Elias wouldn't want changes. He'd want it to survive, Lila replied. She proposed a weekend bookshop in the cafe. Families donated old novels. Teens set up cozy reading nooks. Soon, book clubs bloomed and the commons buzzed anew. On Elias's birthday, the block threw a sunshine festival. They released paper lanterns at dusk, each carrying a note to him. Timmy's read, "We're still growing." Lila hung Elias's scarf beside his hat. "He'd love this," she said. As stars emerged, the cats gathered near the bench where Elias once sat. Timmy smiled. "They miss him too. Or they just want snacks," Lila teased, tossing kibble. The cats purred, and the commons felt whole again, not the same, but still strong. Because Elias hadn't just built a place. He'd built a family, and families, like sunflowers, keep reaching for the light. The Sunshine Festival became an annual tradition, but as Maplewood Commons entered its third year without Elias, cracks began to show. The bookshop thrived, but the greenhouse plants grew sickly, and the cafe's roof leaked worse than ever. Lila frowned at the drooping sunflowers. "We need a miracle," she told Timmy. He grinned. "Or another Elias plan." One rainy afternoon, Timmy rummaged through Elias's old apartment. Behind a loose floorboard, he found a dusty folder labeled "For Rainy Days." Inside were sketches for a solar-powered roof, a compost system, and a note. "When the world feels heavy, light it up." Timmy raced to the block's meeting. "We're fixing the roof," he announced, waving the plans. Mrs. Thompson squinted. "Solar panels? That's expensive." "Elias left money," Lila revealed, holding up a bank statement from his desk. The block gasped. The account had enough to fund the repairs and a new playground. "Why didn't he tell us?" Mr. Doyle exclaimed. "He wanted us to earn it first," Lila said softly. Excitement buzzed. But the next day, a sour-faced inspector shut down the cafe. "Code violations," he said, slapping a notice on the door. The roof repairs needed permits, and the bookshop's wiring was unsafe. Panic set in. "This'll take months," Mrs. Lopez wailed. Timmy spotted the inspector talking to the slick developer from years ago, the same man who'd tried to buy the lot. "They're working together," he hissed to Lila. She stormed over, phone recording. "Harassing us again?" she challenged. The men drove off, but the damage was done. The block felt defeated. Even the cats moped. But that night, Timmy plastered Elias's sketches around the commons. "Light it up," he wrote under each. Mrs. Thompson sighed. The boy's right. Elias wouldn't quit. They divided tasks. Teens studied solar panel tutorials online. Mr. Doyle bribed a friendly electrician with free jerky to fix the wiring. Lila and Timmy tackled the permits, armed with Elias's old city council contacts. "He taught me patience," Lila muttered, waiting hours at the permit office. Weeks later, the cafe reopened, its roof gleaming with solar panels shaped like sunflowers. The block threw a relight party, stringing lanterns and baking sunflower-shaped cookies. But as music played, a crash echoed from the greenhouse. A truck had skidded on the wet road, smashing through the fence. The driver, a nervous teenager, stumbled out. "I'm so sorry, I'll pay for—" Mrs. Thompson cut him off. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head, stunned by her kindness. "Then help us rebuild," she said, handing him a broom. The block worked through the night, laughing as they pieced the fence back together. Timmy painted the new boards with grinning cats. "Elias would have loved this mess," Lila said, passing him a brush. But the next shock came from Lila herself. At dawn, she gathered everyone. "I'm leaving," she said, tears in her eyes. A letter in her hand bore a foreign university's logo, a scholarship to study ecology. "It's what Grandpa would have wanted." Timmy's heart sank. "Who'll take care of the cats?" Lila hugged him. "You will, and I'll be back. Promise." The day she left, the block stood waving at her taxi. Mrs. Thompson pressed a photo of Elias into her hand. "So he goes with you." Lila's absence left a hole, but Maplewood Commons adapted. Timmy, now 16, took charge of the greenhouse. The cats followed him like a furry army. One evening, as he watered plants, a familiar rusty bike squeaked down the street. Mrs. Thompson froze. Elias's bike! But it wasn't Elias. A thin, silver-haired woman rode it, her clothes patched and faded. She parked at the lot, feeding strays from Elias's old bench. The block watched, déjà vu prickling their necks. "Not again," Mr. Doyle groaned. Timmy approached her. "Hi, I'm Timmy." The woman smiled, a smile that crinkled her eyes like Elias's. "I'm Clara. I knew the man who owned this bike. He helped me once." Her voice cracked. "I heard this place was special." Timmy handed her Elias's hat from the cafe wall. It is. Want to see why? Clara stayed. She fixed the compost system, taught kids to grow herbs, and laughed louder than anyone. At first, Mrs. Thompson eyed her like she'd eyed Elias. But one night, Clara found her struggling with a broken lantern.
"Let me help," she said. Together they untangled the wires. "You're not him," Mrs. Thompson said finally. Clara nodded. "But he's here, in the sunflowers, the cats, you." The commons felt whole again, not the same, but stitched with new threads. Timmy realized Elias's magic wasn't about one person.
It was about passing the light, like a never-ending relay. On the first day of spring, a package arrived for Timmy. Inside was a small potted sunflower and a note from Lila. "Keep growing. E. Via me." He placed it beside Elias's hat, now flanked by Clara's gardening gloves. The block knew then, no matter who came or left, the commons would endure. Because home isn't a place. It's the people who keep lighting it up. Maplewood Commons flourished under Clara's care. The garden burst with herbs. The solar panels hummed, and kids read books under the cat-shaped lanterns. Yet whispers lingered. "She's not Elias," some muttered. Clara ignored them too, busy teaching Timmy how to prune stubborn rose bushes. "Like this," she said, snipping dead stems. "Plants need tough love sometimes." One sticky afternoon, the sky turned greenish-gray. Weather alerts blared, a tornado warning. Mrs. Thompson banged pans, rallying the block. "To the cafe basement, now!" Families rushed, clutching flashlights and cats. Clara stayed outside, securing greenhouse doors. "Clara, come on!" Timmy yelled. The wind howled, trees bent like rubber. A garbage can flew past, smashing the Elias's garden sign. Inside the basement, kids huddled, listening to the roar above. Mrs. Thompson counted heads. "Where's Clara?" Timmy bolted upstairs. The commons was a battlefield. Broken planter boxes, uprooted sunflowers, and the cafe's roof tiles flying like daggers. Clara clung to a wobbly greenhouse beam. Timmy tackled her just as the glass shattered. They slid into a ditch, covering their heads. When the storm passed, the block emerged to ruins. The greenhouse was gone. The cafe's roof had collapsed. Even Elias's bench had vanished. Mrs. Lopez sobbed into her hands. "It's all gone." Clara stood, bleeding but steady. "Not gone, just messy." She picked up a broken sunflower, its petals torn. "Elias once told me storms make room for new roots." The block stared, exhausted. Timmy kicked a shattered tile. "How do we even start?" Mrs. Thompson snatched a broom. "Same way we always do, together." News vans arrived, filming the damage. A reporter shoved a mic at Timmy. "How does it feel to lose everything?" Timmy glared. "We didn't lose. We're just..." paused. Donations poured in, blankets, tools, money, but the block refused cash. "We'll earn it," Timmy insisted. They set up a roadside stall, selling sunflower seeds from the surviving plants. Strangers bought handfuls, moved by their grit. Rebuilding was slow. Blisters formed, tempers flared. Clara and Mrs. Thompson clashed over designs. "The cafe needs a steeper roof," Clara argued. "It needs to look normal," Mrs. Thompson shot back. Timmy found them red-faced. "Elias's journal," he said, flipping to a page. It showed a sketch of a windmill. He wanted renewable energy. Let's add that. The women traded glances. "Compromise," Clara sighed. "Steep roof with a windmill." Days later, digging the foundation, Timmy's shovel hit metal. He unearthed a rusty lockbox, Elias's name etched on top. Inside were photos of Maplewood's early days, a faded map, and a letter. "If you're reading this, the storm won, but you'll win the war. Rebuild wiser. Leave room for miracles. E." The block crowded around, tears mixing with laughter. "Leave it to Elias to boss us from the grave," Mr. Doyle joked. They rebuilt higher, stronger, and greener. The New Cafe had a windmill, a rainwater slide for kids, and a mural of the storm, dark clouds parting for a sunflower sun. Clara painted Elias's face in the clouds, winking. At the reopening, the block held hands facing the commons. Elias would have loved this, Timmy said. He'd hate the pink paint, Mrs. Thompson grumbled, eyeing the mural. Clara laughed. He loved pink, wore pink socks every Tuesday. A honk interrupted them. A taxi pulled up. Lila stepped out, luggage in tow. "Miss me?" The block swarmed her. Timmy nearly toppled her. "You came back." "Promised, didn't I?" She hugged Clara, ready to plant some trouble. That night, under new lanterns, Lila revealed her surprise, a sapling from Elias's hometown. "It's a hope tree," she said. They planted it where his bench once stood. As stars blinked awake, Timmy sat by the sapling. A stray cat curled at his feet, purring. Clara joined him, handing over Elias's hat. "Your turn to wear it." He placed it on his head, tilting it, like Elias used to. "Think we'll need another miracle soon?" Clara smiled. "We are the miracle." And in the warm, quiet dark, Maplewood Commons hummed with life, broken, rebuilt, and unbreakable. Years drifted by like autumn leaves. Maplewood Commons grew taller, wilder, and wiser. The hope tree stretched its branches over the cafe, its shade sheltering generations of tea-sippers and dreamers. Timmy, now a lanky college student with Elias's hat still perched on his head, taught summer workshops in the garden. "This is how you save dying plants," he told wide-eyed kids, handing out tiny shovels. One crisp morning, a bulldozer rumbled onto the street. A new developer, a slick woman in a pantsuit, unfurled blueprints at the Commons gate. "High-rise. Apartments," she announced. "Modern upgrades for this quaint neighborhood." The block froze. Even the cats hissed. Mrs. Thompson, her hair fully silver now, marched forward. "Not again," she growled. But this time the block was ready. Timmy rallied the kids. "Grab the protest signs." They dove into the shed, pulling out posters from the last developer fight. "Recycle," Mrs. Lopez joked, patting a faded "no" sign. The council meeting overflowed. The developer droned about progress. Then Timmy stood, Elias's hat tipping precariously. "This place isn't quaint. It's a home. Our stories are in every brick." He held up photos. Elias, feeding cats the storm rebuild. Lila planting the hope tree. The room burst into applause. The developer left, scowling. That night, the block celebrated with a bonfire. Clara strummed a guitar, her voice raspy but warm. Lila, now a professor, shared stories of eco-villages worldwide. "But none," she said, "beat this place." As flames crackled, Timmy noticed a figure lingering by Elias's memorial, a teenage boy in a frayed hoodie feeding crumbs to the strays. His posture was familiar, hunched, watchful, alone. Mrs. Thompson nudged Timmy. "Go on." "History's repeating." Timmy approached, holding out a cookie. "I'm Timmy. You new here?" The boy flinched. "Just passing through." "Elias used to say that too." Timmy smiled. "Stay for the fire?" The boy, Jaden, stayed. He spoke little, but his eyes lingered on the hope tree. Later, Clara found him sketching garden layouts on a napkin. "You've got a steady hand," she said. "Ever built anything?" He shrugged. "Fixed stuff. Nobody cares." Clara handed him a key. "Try the tool shed. It's full of nobody cares things needing love." Jaden hesitated, then vanished. Into the shed. The block watched, exchanging knowing glances. Days later, the Commons woke to a surprise. Jaden had rebuilt the broken fountain, turning it into a cascading waterfall with recycled bottles and cracked tiles. "It's art," Timmy breathed. Jaden wiped grease from his hands. "Had time to kill." Mrs. Thompson brought him a muffin. "Stay longer. We've got more broken stuff." Jaden stayed. He fixed the cafe's creaky door, repainted murals, and even trained the wildest stray cat to fetch. Slowly, his hoodie came down, his smiles outnumbering scowls. One evening, Timmy found him under the hope tree, carving something into its trunk. Vandalizing? Timmy teased. Jaden stepped back, revealing tiny etched sunflowers. So it's not lonely. At the annual Sunshine Festival, the block honored Jaden with a paint-splattered apron, Elias's old one. "Welcome to the family," Lila said. He blushed, mumbling thanks, but wore the apron proudly. As lanterns floated into the night, Timmy sat with Mrs. Thompson. "Think Elias planned all this?" he asked. She chuckled. "He'd say we planned it ourselves." Years later, Timmy brought his daughter to the Commons. The hope tree now towered, its trunk etched with decades of names and sunflowers. "Who's Elias?" she asked, pointing to the oldest carving. Timmy lifted her onto his shoulders. "A wizard who taught us magic isn't in wands. It's in—" He paused, spotting a young girl across the lot, feeding cats, scribbling in a notebook, her bike squeaking. "In what?" "Daddy?" He smiled. "In this." The block had aged, changed, and welcomed new faces. But the Commons thrived, stubborn and bright. Because home isn't a place you find, it's a place you build, again and again, with every kind act, repaired fence, and shared story. And somewhere in the rustle of sunflowers, Elias's laugh lingered, soft as the wind.